And we are live. Good morning. It's Wednesday, so you know what that means. It must be Woke Women Wednesday. Senator Dianne Wilkerson with you here this morning, as I am every morning, due to the wisdom and the foresight of the women with a vision, the women who knew 2 years ago, because we are now 2 years in May, how important it is for us to have a medium that we could bring you information in a timely fashion. Don't take it for granted, because news is everything. News is life. Accurate news is life. Accurate news is everything. And that is what WWOCmedia.com is all about. So, Woke Women Wednesday, we come, and our charge is to talk to you since May 2020 about everything Black, Brown, and COVID. And as I say every week, that means we talk about everything, because COVID clearly has impacted every single second, nanosecond of our waking and sleeping lives. I'm here every Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. And then, of course, at 8 p.m. on the same Wednesday, my fierce and fearless warrior, I call her, the city councilor extraordinaire, Boston City Councilor Julia Mejia, and especially challenged right now because she has the important title of the chair of the Committee on Education before the Boston Public Schools. Right now, in the Boston City Council, she's the chair of education. And so for Boston Public Schools, they have been literally in the news. I don't know that you could look in the past 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and find a day when there wasn't an article about our school system. It is in mess, I would say. Some say in crisis, in crises. The state of Massachusetts is threatening to put the largest school system in the state, the capital city of Boston, in receivership. That ought to make you shudder, because there's no record, no history to suggest that this state administration, the Baker administration, would have any idea what to do with a system that is predominantly Black, Latino, and Asian. Black, Latino, and Asian. Because I can't think of anything else that they operate or run on the state level that is supposed to be for the benefit of people of color, where they're doing well. Okay, so, as I said, the thought of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts taking over the operation of our school system ought to make you shudder. And so I'm a little less anxious because Councilor Mejia is in the seat of the important position as chair of the City Council's Education Committee. So, tune in to see her. She's always full information. And so we're here this morning, and I thought, I don't know that we've had another week where I come to you where it seems to me that every day we've been, every day since last week, the lead story in the news and discussions, the kitchen table, the water cooler, on Zoom, if that's where you still are, on the news, on the local news, the national news, has been about women. And of course, the subset of women, Black women. And so I thought that we would do a little like primer and catch up today. But before I even do that, I do want to say this. Something happened yesterday that shouldn't surprise me. In fact, it really encouraged me. You know that I talk about COVID and how it's impacted Black and Latino communities, neighborhoods in Boston, in a horrible and vicious way. Every week, we are still suffering. We've suffered the most. We've suffered the biggest hit to our family life, to our family's health, which means to our community's health, certainly our financial health. Our businesses have suffered from the loss of business and client and activity almost across the board. And so we are trying to be in rebuilding mode, but it's not easy because we still are in COVID mode. And as much as we would all want it to be gone, as much as we talk about COVID recovery, the reality is that while we might be frustrated and ready to be done with COVID, COVID clearly is not done with us. And so I talk about that every week, about how, the numbers, I will tell you the numbers are going up. The wastewater numbers, which is how they measure where we are. Boston's wastewater numbers have been on the rise. But the numbers are now what we call surging, which means, 4% positivity rate was where we were, right? Where we were that when we reached that point 2 years ago and then a year ago, school was suspended, right? We canceled school when we had more than 4%. We had to get back to 4% to open our schools. But we're at 8% now and climbing. The numbers are increasing. In fact, one day last week, we hit the largest number of new cases of COVID in Boston. And I'm only talking about Boston. I focus on Boston. Largest number of new cases in Boston in probably several months. And so we've been saying this, you'll see the Black Boston COVID-19 Coalition van out and about. We were in Franklin Park on Saturday. And even in all that wind and cold, people were actually showing up on Saturday to get vaccinated. I got my second booster. I took my mom to get her second booster. And there was two young Black men behind me waiting to get their vaccinations. People came to get their shots. And so we're there on Saturdays, right? Right in the opening at Peabody Circle from 11, I think, in the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So know that you can get tested as well. But on Tuesdays, we're in the Washington Park Mall. And to some extent, it's like returning to the beginning scene, because it was in Washington Park Mall in June of 2020 that 3 months after COVID presented itself, because we were talking a presentation in March is when we shut down, but in June of 2020, through the help of the then Mayor Walsh, certainly Boston Public Health Commission, Whittier Street Health Center, East Boston Health Center, and Representative China Tyler, we were able to finally get a testing site open on Washington Park Mall. And I remember in the 24 hours, so we had the testing site open at 12 o'clock on a Wednesday, and went through 6, and then 12 o'clock the next day through 6. And in 24 hours, almost 1,500 people showed up to get tested, because we were in the height and people were concerned and wanted to know their status. And we were both delighted, but we're also very smug. And why I say smug is because, constantly we hear this message of, yeah, we can do this. The Black people really don't care. They don't pay attention. And I found in relative to COVID, nothing could be farther from the truth. Don't get it twisted. There's an enormous, appropriate amount of distrust, right? Legitimate distrust onto the whole system that Black people and brown people have. But that's not the same as not caring. And so we turned out big in 24 hours. And we've been saying, the Black Boston COVID-19 Coalition has been talking for the last marketing we've had ads, we've got radio. We've been talking about how the numbers are going up. For us, they are. They never were ready. They never were down to a point where we could rest anyway, but they've been going up. And that people should be very cautious. Please continue to wear your mask when you're out in public. I'm wearing mine. I was in church Sunday, and Bishop Borders said we might be wearing them for a long time. Certainly we'll be wearing them, through the end of the year. But yeah, we should, please, folks, we need to be doing that. But also just make sure you're tested so you'll know where you are. You know where the kids are. So we went from, we had the mobile van in Washington Park Mall yesterday. And in a very short period of time, we did a few hours. We did 35 people showed up to get tested. And I can tell you that from a testing site and clinic space, that's a lot. And I'm surprised. I'm glad. I'm happy. That's a lot. That's a lot. And it's a lot because people do pay attention, right? Our people do pay attention, and they do want to be safe, and they want their families to be safe. They want their children to be safe. And so they go to get tested. And so I'm happy about that, but they go to get tested. So continue to do that. On Fridays or Tuesdays, we're at Washington Park Mall. On Fridays, we're in Mattapan Square, because Mattapan continues to be a hotbed for us, not just for testing, but also, still pushing those numbers, trying to get those numbers up of people who are vaccinated in Mattapan Square, in Mattapan area. So Mattapan is a neighborhood. We are there every Friday, the mobile van, with IFSI, our partners, Pastor Kiki and the folks at the Immigrant Family Services Institute at 1626 Blue Hill Avenue. And we'll be there on Friday from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. And if you come through to get tested, they'll give you a $25 gift card. And it's important. It helps because you can go across the street to Family Market and do some grocery shopping, or take it to wherever you want to go to do grocery shopping. You can do that. And we want to encourage it, and we'll continue to encourage it. But that's on Friday. And then on Saturdays, like I said, we're in Franklin Park, and right at the lip in the opening of Franklin Park in what's called Peabody Circle, right across the street from the entrance up to the zoo. So I hope that's helpful. We do vaccines and testing on Saturdays at Franklin Park. We do vaccines and testing on Fridays at 1626 Blue Hill Avenue from 3 to 7. And on Tuesdays at Washington Park Mall, we're just doing testing. So if you just want to get through and get a rapid test, by all means, do so. And certainly you can continue to get the PCR, which is the more long-term, the PCR test at the Bowling Building from 12 to 8 every day for the rest of this month anyway. They'll be closed on Memorial Day, I think. But for the rest of this month, you can get a PCR test, which is a little bit more complex than the rapid test. You have to wait 24 hours to get your results. But at the Bowling Building, 12 to 8, simple, go in. There's no lines, no waiting. We don't have them really anywhere, which is a great thing. You shouldn't have to. And so know that. Also, Prince Hall is still doing testing and vaccine during the week. I think Tuesday through Saturday, in fact. And so 12 to 7 Tuesdays and Thursdays, I think they're late. But then, regular kind of office business out 10 to 5 on Wednesday, Thursdays. But certainly make sure there's no lack of commitment to staying as long as we have to keep our folks safe. We're going to be at this a while. So I just want to say that. But I also want to talk about women today. Like I said, I want to talk about women because what could be a more appropriate conversation, right, and topic than Black women for Woke Women Wednesday? Because that's really what we talk about is Black women. And so there's been I want to talk about this whole national state discussion on privacy and the Constitution, because Massachusetts certainly has had some history with this issue of attempts to put discrimination and racism in its constitution, right? I had an opportunity to be personally involved in this debate in 2002 when there was a move to ban, affirmatively, to put language in our state constitution to affirmatively ban the right of people of the same sex to marry. And my position then, it still is now, is to me, it's less an issue of what your position is on the subject as much as what your concern ought to be about a process that allows that tried to put language in our constitution that banned an act. Our Constitution is much like the U.S. Constitution, enumerates or states or spells out the rights that we have as citizens, right, of this Commonwealth of Massachusetts. You don't use Constitution to put or codify what people can't do. Constitutional language is designed to enumerate and make clear what people can, CAN, do. The right to this, the right to bear arms, the right to, life lived, the right to free speech, or, that kind of thing. We've never in the Commonwealth had language that said, these are the things you can't do. And Lord knows we didn't want to start that then. So I fought it hard. We were victorious in Massachusetts in keeping language out of our Constitution that banned activity, right? Banned the right for gay marriage. And so the concern on a national level right now is a little different, but ought to evoke similar concern. And that is we know that from the leaked, this would be, in my opinion, the appropriate time to use the air quotes, leaked opinion. Somebody was screaming for help from inside, as far as I'm concerned. It wasn't an accident. They leaked the opinion to show the sweeping rage, that's what I call it, rage and confusion by the drafter, the author of that opinion, that the heads up that they're about to reverse the right in Roe v. Wade for women to have control of their own bodies. And I think about this whole, how we have gotten so much bolder in America at at the hypocrisy, right? Making two arguments that contradict each other at the same time. Because, see, the elitos of the world were the same people who screamed about forced busing, right? You can't make me send my children to school with black children. All right, right? Forced busing, they said. Forced busing was unconstitutional. Forced housing. You can't make me live next door to black people. Of course, that was never integration. That's just not what it is. It doesn't force you to live anywhere. It really provides a right for black people to live where they want. But that how they interpret it is you forcing me to live next to these people. And they were outraged about it, about forcing the child to get on a bus, right? But they're okay with forcing a woman, forcing a child to live through a pregnancy that might have been born through rape or incest, forcing her. She will not be allowed. No one around her will be allowed to help her. No one around her will be allowed to assist her and avoiding that trauma. No one, because in their mind, and what you see happening state by state, they not only will punish her, they will punish anybody who talks to her. They punish people who know about it, people, the doctors. This is all so incredibly insane that we ought to be concerned. And here's my point. I'm not saying that you ought to be concerned because you all should have the same opinion about abortion as I do or others do. You ought to be concerned because we live in a country that is really, really fast ascending. I say descending. Ascending would be up, descending in the slipperiest slope that we've had in probably 400 years. And why do I say that? Because if it's about privacy, this is the attack of the privacy right. That's the attack on the right of you to choose your mate. That's privacy. Remember, Loving versus Virginia was the case that upheld the right for biracial, interracial couples to marry based on the right to privacy. That the government doesn't have a right to tell you who you can and cannot marry. So not just same sex, but even same race. I mean, that you remember that, right? And so privacy is what allows women, to literally every month, a childbearing age, to go to a drugstore, to have a doctor write a prescription for birth control pills. That's the next step logically. It's not a stretch. They are talking already, they talk about a morning after pill or a B pill that was created that allowed folks, really a lot of women, to correct mistakes, accidents, you name it. That's been at least 20 years, I think, on the market. And this would be outlawed in many of the states already, saying you would not be able to do that because they considered an abortifacient, what's called an abortifacient. I know a little bit about this because I was the author of the birth control pill bill in Massachusetts. In 2001, we passed a law in Massachusetts that allowed women the right to secure their monthly birth control pills, reproductive and the hormone HRT, therapy, hormone replacement therapy. If they're in menopause, it would be covered in your health insurance. If your health insurer provided coverage for Viagra, then they had to cover the women's reproductive, child, let's say family services like that, like the exam, the birth control pills, the hormone replacement therapy. Before 2001, only 30% of insurers in Massachusetts were providing that as part of their health insurance. So even women that were working, that's what I'm talking about, women who were working and paying for health insurance still had to get in their pocket and go to the drugstore once a month and pay the $10 or $20 for their birth control pills. And thinking, what? Now, in 2000, right, that same time, 75% of insurers at the time were covering Viagra, which had only been on the market for 6 years. So, boy, they got those blue pills covered right away, right? So It's really, I mean, it's funny and it's sad because they could look in your face straight and justify that. So we're going to pay. We're going to pay for men to have those Viagra pills to strengthen their testosterone so that they can get it up and do whatever they want to do. But for women who are trying to be responsible, they had to pay out of their pocket. So I'm proud to claim that as one of my most important pieces of legislation, that women have the same right. If you have health insurance that you're paying for through employment and they provide coverage for Viagra, then they got to provide coverage for you to get your birth control pills. Just made sense to me. All of that could be gone. So be clear. The role, this shuffle, kerfuffle, as they call it. This is not just about abortion. It's not just about abortion. It's not just about abortion. And we already see it. No right to vote, which we have in our constitutional right to vote, but we, right? That's already been under attack, and we can't even protect it right now because the Supreme Court has approved the dismantling of our Voting Rights Act. So we need to hold on to our, to hold on to the rails, because this is going to be a roller coaster of a fight. If you get a chance, you read Harold's op-ed today. Joyce Faribault has one about the Supreme Court and Roe v. Wade. You should take a read of it. If you haven't, please read it. It's real. And then that really kind of gets me to this final piece about Black women. So for the second cycle, and I say the second cycle because if you recall in 2016, the stats were clear when that's the year that that DJT was elected president. 93% of Black women voted for the opposite candidate, right? 93% voted for a different candidate. Why? Because we're not stupid. We knew, right? And I could say, like, on the more real note, we know our role here has been for several national election cycles to ground America in some common sense. And that's not a joke. That's not a bragging. That's just a fact that Black women have been there, that base, that knowing, that, kind of doing the right thing for our survival. That's what I'm really talking about, right? Black women, that's what we do. That's what we've done. We did it in 2016 in a big way, but it wasn't enough. And the reason it wasn't enough is because our white female counterparts did not process that election cycle the same way, right? And so 55% of them voted for DJT. That's what we call in our communities voting against your interest, your personal interest, because we all knew he did not lie, he did not fake, he did not wink about what he thought about women. And despite that, they walked into booths and voted for him. And so we were on a bad way right from the beginning. So we had to double down in 2020, right? And so when that chance and choice came again, Black women went 95% and voted their interest, right? Voted their interest. And that is for a candidate that was speaking truth to power. That talked about his belief, in fact, what he said is, Black women, if I'm going to be successful, the current president said, I'm going to need that number. He got it. He got a little bit more than we had even done in 2016. And that's important. Why? Because even after 4 years of knowing who he was, and that in fact it was worse than what he actually said and what he thought about about women, not just Black women, and that he said that his mission was to appoint enough justices to overturn Roe v. Wade. So he made that very clear. Like that was, we already knew what he thought about affirmative action. We knew what he thought about Black women. We knew what he thought about Black people. We knew that, right? Because he said it and he did it. And this time, 59% of white women went in the booth and voted for him in 2020. Don't forget that, people. Just don't forget it. But we got to figure out what to do with that, because now the proverbial chickens have come home to roost because he did what he said he was going to do. We have three new marginally qualified Supreme Court justices to add to the ones we already had. So we're in a distinct minority and can expect, without some change in the future, that this latest leaked draft is just the beginning of a whole series of major rollbacks of the rights that have become so precious to us. So affirmative action will be gone for sure. The voting right protections will be gone. I would imagine that they are not very keen on gay marriage either. So that right, and even the right to interracial marriage will be challenged. You should expect it, because this is the climate that we live in today, and it didn't have to happen. So here's now all this conversation. You hear, this is the national conversation. Women, 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 women. So all of the, oh my God, this is terrible. And the people who are going to suffer the most are going to be Black women and poor Latino women and poor women. And oh my goodness. Well, really? Don't try to make it sound like you're concerned about us, because the rights we lose, you're losing them too. And if you paid attention, if you read anything, if you watch, you know this was coming. So this can't be a surprise, not a surprise. But having said that, what I'm clear about is this, that the folks who didn't believe it was going to happen and are woke now, our women friends across the country, period, are going to have to lock arms. And so we're not going to be able to spend a lot of time pointing fingers about who did what. We're going to have to get focused on how we fix this. We have to. We must. We should, right? We have to. And we have to. And we have to not just because of Roe. We have to because privacy matters. We have to because women should have a right to be able to purchase and get access to birth control pills. We have to because people should be able to marry whom they wish. We have to because voting rights is important to us. We have to. This is so much more than about abortion. It is, because they have signaled they're coming for all of it, and we have to be there for all of it. So what does that mean? Well, it means the Black people again being asked to save the damn democracy. That's what it means. And we're going to be ready to do it because that's what we do. That's what we do. And that's something that you can't tire of. So you'll see the organizations, the Black Women for Positive Change, Black Vote Matter, all of the Black voter civic participation, the Urban League, the fraternities, the sororities are going to be mobilized. Not mobilizing, like I said, it's not even about abortion. It's about our rights as people to continue to exist and to be here. We're going to be there because that is what we do. So for the women who thought that we might be able to give that cape a rest, get it out, dust it up, get it pressed, get it dry cleaned, whatever we got to do, because we got to put that cape on again, that super cape, and go off to save the democracy again, because it is in the level of jeopardy that, like I said, even when we all saw coming, still ought to give you some pause. And I'm just so glad that WWOC Media is in the space, in the mix, that continue to allow us the opportunity and the time to bring information to you. So, like I said, not just about, we're going to be challenged because we're still in COVID, but the fight is on, and it is real. And like I said, I have no doubt that black women are going to be playing a major space and role in this saving this democracy yet again. And we'll be here. So we'll be back next week. I have another special guest next week. We're going to talk about, let's say, just one of my favorite topics, and that is wealth creation and how Black folks can get serious about the business of building it for real, right? For real. Um, if we want to continue to have presence in Boston, like many urban cities across the country. And when that gas starts going up, they start knocking on that door even harder. Want to sell your house? I want to buy your house. I want to buy your house. And so, sure enough, it was not an accident that on Sunday past there was an article in the the Boston Globe about the exodus that has been expedited, an increasing number of Black people who are looking to purchase that home and can't afford Boston, so they're moving out into the suburbs and going to Brockton and Randolph and I applaud Black home ownership, but I don't applaud ceding property and land. You can't replace it. You can't give it up. And so I'm clear that we have to do everything we can to make sure that we maintain the presence, which means really maintaining ownership of property in the Black families that went through so much to secure it here in Boston. And that's a task. And so we're going to be talking about that on more than for a few weeks to come, and how we continue to memorialize and solidify our our ecosystem, the Black ecosystem, not only in just greater Black community of Boston, but really across the state, if not across the country. And that's how we must focus if we're going to. And we've got to do that in the face of a loss of homeownership decreased as a result of COVID. No kidding, right? The financial impact has been grave. And so we're going to talk about it. And though the topic is somber that we had today, I'm really encouraged by what I see. Our folks are responding. Like I said, they're wearing it. Continue to wear your mask, people, please. Continue to wear your mask. I know you're tired of it. I know I am. I wear my mask and it makes my nose run, and I have to kind of pull it out and breathe. But and I've tried everything, but that's just it. But I'm wearing it, and there are some places I go where I double it up, and I'll continue to do that. Stay safe. Wear your mask. Physical distancing is still a real thing. Physical distancing, that's different than social distancing. Physically distance, not social. Check on your people. And I mean, if you can, Zoom them, call them for sure. But if you can Zoom them and look them in the eye, make sure they're okay. Because the mental health isolation impact is also real. We will see you next week. Don't forget to tune in to my sister warrior, Julia Mejia, Councilor Mejia, on later this evening. And stay woke. Woke Women Wednesday. Bye-bye.